Should recreational marijuana be legal in our state? You'll be the judge in November if you cast your ballot. The state Supreme Court ruling Monday, it too is now in the hands of voters. Steve Vancore, representing Trulieve, provider of medical and recreational cannabis and CBD, is with us today from Tallahassee. Hi, Steve.
Hey, thanks for having me on.
So my first question for you is there a big appetite for this? Are people clamoring for this? I think I've talked to a lot of people who say it seems like if you want marijuana here in the state of Florida, you can get it.
Well, yeah, there absolutely is clamoring for it. You know, right now in America, a majority of Americans live in a state where adult use, consumption for adults is allowed. Another 17 states have some sort of medical program. And in order to go through the medical program, obviously you have to be sick, you have to see a doctor, you have to pay for that, you have to pay to get a medical marijuana card. I think there's a high level of demand, especially when you see how strong the illicit market is, the gray market as it were. And you combine those two factors, absolutely there's a strong demand. And poll after poll after poll shows between 65 and 70% of the voting public says they want this.
There is still plenty of opposition, though. I know the Florida Chamber of Commerce, they've come out against it. So has the Florida Sheriff's Association. And just this week, the governor said he would be voting no as well. Let's take a listen.
It's basically a license to have it anywhere you want. So no time, place, and manner restrictions. This state will start to smell like marijuana in our cities and towns. It will reduce the quality of life.
Steve, what do you have to say about that?
Well, that's not true. The amendment clearly states right there in the language, nothing in this amendment shall prohibit the legislature from enacting the laws they need to. The Constitution long has held, the Florida Constitution is clear on this, that unless something is explicitly prohibited, then it's allowed to be legislated. And we see this every day in Florida, right? Where you're allowed, you have the right to consume alcohol, but you don't have the right to drink and drive. You don't have the right to drink and walk into a PTO meeting or to an elementary school and drink. So the legislature has the authority and will still have the authority, and we will support those restrictions to say, hey, regulate time, place, and manner. We do it with tobacco products. You have the right to smoke tobacco products, but you don't have the right to smoke it on an airplane. You don't have the right to smoke it in a public place, a public park. And we would encourage the legislature to follow the amendment, to follow the Constitution, and say you cannot smoke in public places, especially in places where there might be children about.
I'm very curious as to what the state will have to gain from this, because right now, if you have a medical card, you have to get a renewal from a doctor. There's a fee associated with that. You have to get your card renewed every year. There are fees. So the state is making money. So if this passes Amendment 3, that essentially, makes those cards, those medical cards, unnecessary, right? So would the state be losing out? Explain that for me. And how does the state win?
So a couple thoughts. One is the medical marijuana, every state that has enacted a recreational or an adult use program on top of a medical program, the medical programs remain robust for several reasons. There's different products. And remember, since it's considered under medicine, it's not taxable. If it's recreational adult use, the state benefits in several ways. One, they'll be able to tax that revenue and pay for any cost to the state. Secondly, you'll have a reduction in law enforcement activities. Law enforcement needs to spend their time on violent criminals, other types of crimes, not somebody coming home from work and sitting down and enjoying some cannabis after work in the privacy of their own home. So the state's going to benefit several ways. One from the tax dollars, one from the reduction in law enforcement. The citizens are going to benefit as well. Just the other day, a pilot crashed. He was taking ketamine. Why do I bring up ketamine? We're now finding, and this was in testimony in the Florida House of Representatives, 90% of marijuana that was consumed by the FDLE, the Florida Department of Law Enforcement, contained either enhancers like ketamine, like fentanyl, like methamphetamine, and other drugs. In the second category are dangerous herbicides and pesticides. Remember, we outlawed lead in our herbicides and pesticides many, many years ago. Well, overseas cartels don't have those same restrictions. And so, according to the testimony presented in the Florida House of Representatives, 90% of the marijuana consumed on the streets contains either one of those categories of dangerous chemicals. Under a recreational regulated program, currently under Florida law, These things are, marijuana is grown indoors, so you have a reduction in herbicides or pesticides. Secondly, it's third-party lab tested to make sure there's no additives or unlawful chemicals in that. You don't have that same luxury when you buy something on the street.
But Steve, there are legitimate concerns, though, about edibles. That's kind of a whole different thing. And those edibles would be legal, right, if Amendment 3 passes. And there are concerns that edibles, whether they get in the hands of kids or whether they're consumed by adults, you know, we've heard stories of people who consume an edible, don't realize that it's taking an effect. They consume more, and people get sick from that. So how do you sort of allay concerns about that?
Well, you're absolutely right, and that's why a regulated market is a better market, because what you're seeing right now out in the real world, right, when people are buying from a street corner drug dealer, what they're getting are unknown enhancers that make these drugs far, far more potent, and many times that leads to death. We had about 4 months ago in North Florida, in Quincy, we had 9 people die on the same day from what's called a hot batch of methamphetamine. It was loaded with fentanyl, a large amount of fentanyl, and they died. 3 of those people were smoking marijuana. That's the danger we want to seek to stop. So, you know, if someone's going to overconsume, they're going to do that whether it's on the illicit market or whether it's on a regulated market. At least you know what you're getting. And then the dosages in the legal regulated market, on the authorized regulated market, will be clearly labeled as to what the milligrams are, just like you do with ABV for beer, just like you do with proof for alcohol. We currently don't have that in the recreational, because the only place you can get marijuana for your own personal consumption, if you're not in the medical market, is on the street corner, and that's a bad thing.
All right, Steve, we'll let you have the last word. Thank you so much for joining us, and we'll see what happens in November.
Appreciate the opportunity.
Thank you.